All right, what's up, everyone? It's Andrew Bone, BamaInsider.com. Uh, Joining you guys today, talk a little bit about Alabama football recruiting. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Um, what we'll talk about today is we'll talk a little bit about Eric Gilbert's commitment to LSU, kind of what that impact has on Alabama's recruiting class. We'll talk about some of the other tight end targets for the Crimson Tide. We'll also talk about some visitors for Alabama, and then I'll take a few questions from you guys, and we'll get out of here. Definitely shocked by Gilbert's announcement yesterday to LSU, probably like most of you were. And probably like the rest of the country. I mean, from his family, being surprised because, we all think that, the family probably talked and knew what was going on, but even they said that they didn't know what he was going to do. It seemed like most of them thought he was even going to Alabama, just like everyone else did. I don't think LSU was thinking he was going to LSU. When we start trying to predict and try to figure out where these kids are going to school. It's not just a gut feeling. It's not just the school that you cover and we think, oh, well, he's probably going to go there. There's a big need there. We talk to every, source that we can. Not just on Alabama side. We got plenty of sources there. I've been told for years by sources on Alabama that they feel like kids going to school there, and talking to, and then we talk to other sides, and they feel the same way. So you try to talk to as many different sources as you can from each side of the coin. So we were talking to people on the Georgia side, we were talking to people on the LSU side, on the Texas A&M side, Clemson side. We're trying to figure out, what everybody was hearing leading up to the announcement. Everyone, absolutely everyone just assumed that he was going to Alabama. I guess except for Gilbert. And it's tough sometimes when you're trying to make a prediction on kid, and a lot of times you see these predictions that come out, whether it's from, and I'll be honest, whether it's from me or whether it's from, different websites, or different recruiting websites, different analysts, stuff like that. A lot of times we are told beforehand. We're told, all right, this kid's going to school, this is where he's going to announce to, whether it's the kid, a coach, a parent, somebody like that. Somebody usually gives us a good tip. Well, on Eric Gilbert, nothing, absolutely nothing. No, not to anybody. And I talked to the guys who are the absolute best sources in the country when it comes to kids in the state of Georgia. Nothing. And these guys get everything. They know everything that goes on in the state of Georgia, and there was absolutely no word leaked out. And probably about maybe about 2 hours before the announcement, I was hearing that he had not told Alabama anything. But started asking around, and he hadn't told anybody anything. So, still just assumed, all right, he's just keeping it quiet. He's going to announce, because Jamil Burroughs kind of did the same thing a few weeks ago with Alabama. People probably don't realize that he didn't tell Alabama coaches before he announced. He just announced it, and obviously Alabama accepted his commitment, but he kept things pretty quiet. Eric Gilbert did a tremendous job keeping things extremely quiet from his family, from coaches, from everybody. So it wasn't just Alabama that was surprised. It wasn't just us that was surprised. It was LSU just as surprised as everybody else. And I'm sure they were just they were very excited, very happy to get him on board. So yeah, sometimes you miss, and Alabama, big miss there. Recruiting analysts across the country, feel for you. I know you're taking some heat because we're getting it on our side that we missed on it. But hey, what can you do? So with Alabama, what's next as far as tight ends are concerned? Alabama had really focused in on Gilbert for the last several months, and I think they felt like there was a good chance that he was going to jump on board. They kind of had stopped recruiting. I would say, I don't want to say stop, slowed down in recruiting Darnell Washington, the other big 5-star tight end, because Alabama was only taking 2 tight ends in this class. They already had a commitment from Caden Clark, and Eric Gilbert had been the top target for a long time. Do they potentially go back after Darnell Washington? Pick things back up with him. Now, I think there's a chance that he'll visit. Alabama wasn't in his top three a few months ago, but I'm sure Alabama's just trying to figure out exactly what they want to do at the position now. Do they want to go after another tight end? Do they want to, shut things down and maybe go after another position? Not a lot of spots left in this recruiting class. So I got to try to figure out what you want to do. Everyone just kind of automatically assumes, yeah, they've got to get a tight end in this class. That, 2 was kind of a priority. And yeah, I mean, that's what I've been saying for a long time, that 2 was a priority. But, I think Darnell Washington most likely is going to end up at Georgia. Look at some of these other guys that they've recruited and kind of kept in contact with, not necessarily pushing hard for, but kept in contact with J.J. Pigas from Mississippi, who visited last week. Now that's somebody that you might want to kind of keep an eye on, just to kind of see if Alabama pushes hard for him, potentially brings him in for an official visit. But most people assume that Auburn's been the favorite for him. I think they've had a big lead for him for a long time. So even if you do make a big push for him, I don't know if that's going to help. Theo Johnson out of Ontario. We've mentioned him a little bit throughout the year as a possible guy that's going to come in for a visit. And he said he's going to come in for a visit. But even if Alabama's in his top 5, I think Alabama's number 5. I don't see them in the top 2 and the top 3 for him. So long way to go in terms of trying to get another tight end in this class. And I think Alabama's probably looking around right now, seeing who's left, who's still out there. Now, is there a possibility that Eric Gilbert may decide to flip down the road? There's always that possibility. The biggest thing with him is he is already committed and it's not signing day, so still got a little bit of time to work on him. And maybe even his family. Maybe his family wants him to stay a little bit closer to home. But it's definitely an uphill battle now. It's very tough to flip those kids, especially after they've taken most of their official visits. And with Eric Gilbert I think he took 4 of them. I don't think he ended up taking one to Clemson, but had Clemson in his top 5. But maybe you get him back on campus. Maybe for the LSU game. Maybe for a different game. But I'm sure Alabama's going to continue to work on him. Unless he just completely says, listen, don't recruit me, don't come by the high school, don't come to my house for an in-home visit, then I don't see Alabama slowing down, trying to at least get him back on campus, or at least visiting with him one more time before he signs. But, I mentioned the other day, I guess last night, that, there's a good possibility that Alabama may not sign another tight end in this class. And, I just kind of went over the reasons why, because, all the guys that are still out there that they're still recruiting, long shots to end up at Alabama, in my opinion. There's only a few spots remaining in the class. I mean, you have 23 commitments. So you say, maybe 6 spots remaining, maybe 7, depending on what happens in terms of if Alabama ends up gray shirting someone, they do a blue shirt, something like that. Probably 6, maybe 7 spots. Of course, you got to wait and see. Maybe any of these guys who end up maybe flipping are going elsewhere. Obviously, Timothy Smith still kind of looking around, feeling a little bit more comfortable about him sticking, because he's going to come in for the LSU game for an unofficial. Then he's going to come back for an official after the season. So I think that's big for to get at least 2 more visits out of Timothy Smith, and then kind of see what happens with Jason Jones a little bit down the road. As I mentioned last week, Jason Jones, a longtime Alabama commitment, has been asked about moving to the offensive line at Alabama. Alabama has 2 offensive line commitments right now, looking to get 1 more. And, Jason Jones been a defensive line commitment for a long time. I think he's just going to have to decide, does he want to go to Alabama bad enough and play offensive line, or does he want to stay on the defensive line and maybe go somewhere else? So that's going to be something to watch as we move forward. But yeah, I mean, it's a big miss for Alabama on Eric Gilbert. And I have started to hear a little bit that they may start looking, not may, but they will start looking around to see who might be available after the season in terms of a grad transfer at tight end. So that's definitely a strong possibility there, and something that I think the Alabama coach is already starting to peel back the layers and see who might be available as a potential graduate transfer. Um, and I said the other day, I said, maybe they get two wide receivers instead of a tight end, and that's a possibility. But maybe they get another player in another position, say another defensive lineman. Maybe they get another offensive lineman in the class. We're just going to have to kind of wait and see what happens, see how things unfold, see who comes in for official visits. The LSU game is going to be huge. There's going to be so many kids on campus for official visits, for unofficial visits, kids that we probably haven't even discussed. That all of a sudden they start having more interest in Alabama after coming in for an official visit. So it's something to kind of keep an eye on, wait, see what happens. But right now, like I said, once again, big miss at tight end. They really were. I think Alabama was really hoping to get Eric Gilbert yesterday. They didn't. LSU did. LSU, tremendous recruiting class right now. A lot of big out-of-state kids. We'll talk about two of those guys that are coming in to Tuscaloosa this weekend for official visits. But they've recruited extremely well this year. Currently have the #1 class on Rivals.com, and everyone kind of just assumed that it was going to be a Clemson Georgia battle for the top overall spot, and now you got LSU at #1. We were talking the other day about Alabama potentially being the #1 class. Of course, I was saying that if they were able to get Eric Gilbert on board, if they could get Zach Evans, but LSU, ton of momentum right now. They're getting Zach Evans on campus for an official visit this weekend. And, I've been saying for the last couple of weeks that it's starting to feel more like an Alabama-LSU battle for Zach Evans. So a lot of momentum for them right now. If they get Zach Evans on board, I think LSU ends up with the #1 recruiting class in the country this year. So this weekend, moving on, we'll talk about some of the official visitors coming in town. Seth McLaughlin, the 3-star center commitment from Buford High School, who's completely shut down his recruitment, and Roydell Williams, 4-star running back from Hueytown High School. Both Alabama commitments, been committed to Alabama for a long time. Both of those guys will be on campus this weekend for official visits. Nothing to worry about with them at all. Very solid with their decisions to Alabama. Two guys who will be on campus this weekend for official visits who are committed to LSU. Rakeem Jarrett, 5-star wide receiver out of Washington, D.C., and Kashawn Boot, Rivals 100 wide receiver out of Louisiana. I've been saying for a while that I guess the last maybe 3 or 4 weeks, really watch out for Rakeem Jarrett, because Alabama has really turned up the heat on him over the last few weeks, ever since they saw him in September. They really like him a lot. They're really trying to get one more running back, one more wide receiver in this recruiting class. And, with the loss of, probable loss of Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, maybe Devontae Smith, there's going to be a lot of balls to catch next season. And, they've got a really good wide receiver class right now. They're still trying to add at least one more guy. Rakeem Jarrett, certainly one of those guys that they're heavily recruiting, that I think I feel like they've got a better shot with him than Kashawn Boot, because, he's an out-of-state kid from Washington, D.C. Alabama's done a tremendous job recruiting that area over the last several years. Terrell Lewis from St. John's High School. Keelan Robinson, just a freshman, also from St. John. So those guys have been talking to Rakeem, trying to recruit him. Bryce Young, Alabama's big-time quarterback commitment, has also been in contact with him. So he's definitely a guy to kind of keep an eye on this weekend, see how things go. Not sure if he would immediately flip. I think, if he were to flip, it might be a little bit further down the road. After he takes, maybe a few more visits, it might be kind of a December thing, but we'll see how the visit goes this weekend and kind of go from there. He hasn't visited Tuscaloosa since, 2 summers ago. So it's been a while since he's been back on campus, but, been in constant contact with the coaching staff. And, he's got some, obviously, like I said, Rakeem Jarrett is being recruited by Bryce Young. Trayshawn Holden, who played a season in the Baltimore area, is friends with him, and also trying to recruit him to Alabama. So he's got some connections there, with Alabama. Kashawn Boot, Rivals 100 wide receiver out of Louisiana. Probably a little bit tougher to flip him, just because he's a Louisiana kid, been committed to LSU for a while. he told me during the summer, he said, he was really watching, wait and watch and see what happens with the LSU offense this season. He knew what to expect with Alabama's offense, but what could LSU's offense do? And obviously, they're performing at a very high level. I think they lead the nation in points per game, and so that certainly stands out to him. And I think it will take a, kind of a Herculean effort for Alabama to flip his commitment. But he said recently he's 50-50. I think it's I would say it's more 80-20, maybe even higher than that. I think he's very solid with LSU, but he is coming in this weekend, so we'll keep an eye on the visit. All right, guys. So I'm going to take a few questions here, and then we'll get out of here. Do I expect Alabama to sign Philip Webb? They need to get him back on campus. And that's another guy that LSU is very much in the picture for right now. He took a visit down to LSU for the Florida game. Really loved it a lot down there. And, they have certainly made up a ton of ground with him. I think it's close. He needs to get back to Tuscaloosa, for me to kind of give a better feel on where things stand with Alabama. If I were to pick today, I think maybe they're on the outside. I think Alabama may be on the outside for him, but coming back to campus, things could change. Alabama's got a tremendous linebacker class right now, especially on the outside, but they're really trying to get Philip Webb. It's not necessarily getting another guy at the position. It's getting Philip Webb, because if they miss on Webb, I think they're done. They're not going to really recruit anybody else in terms of a pass rusher, a jack linebacker type, not necessarily a defensive end, but a jack linebacker type like Philip Webb. If they miss on him, I think they're done. Do I expect Alabama to sign McKinley Jackson? To be determined. I think Alabama's definitely high on his list, top 3, maybe even top 2. The problem with Jackson is he's wanting to wait until February to make a decision. Where will things stand with Alabama by then? Will they have any spots left? I think they will. I think they really like him. They've done a great job recruiting him. Brian Baker, the defensive line coach, the two of them have a tremendous relationship with each other. But we'll just have to wait and kind of see. But I do think Alabama's in the top 3 for him. But a decision for him won't happen until a few months down the road. Do I expect Timothy Smith to sign with Alabama? Well, like I said earlier, I do think that Alabama's chances are improving. Probably a few weeks ago, I was saying, I was pretty iffy on it just because he'd taken 3 visits to Gainesville since his commitment to Alabama. Very tough, especially when, he's an in-state kid for Florida. He's been there so much. They consider him a number 1 priority. So does Alabama. I mean, Alabama loves Timothy Smith. They want to keep him as a part of this class. He's a big piece of this class for Alabama. Big need on the defensive line. So they're definitely making him a top priority. And I think the fact that he's going to be back in Tuscaloosa at least 2 more times before he signs, I like Alabama's chances to keep him. All right, let's see. All right, guys, trying to scroll through here. Is Alabama still recruiting Justin Flo? I don't think so. They would still obviously take him. They love him. They think he's great. Flo's kind of come out and said that Alabama really wasn't in his top 4, top 5. So I think he pretty much eliminated them. Alabama certainly doesn't. They don't expect him in this class. So. Even though they would still take him, I'm sure they've probably reached out to him a few times this season. And I don't want to say they're not recruiting him anymore, but they're just not going to get him. Who do I think will fill out the last 5 or so spots, if I can say? Well, it's tough. I was thinking Eric Gilbert was going to be one of those guys, along with everyone else. But I do think Alabama adds at least 1 more running back. Who that's going to be, it kind of remains to be seen. Zach Evans has, like I said, I think a top 2 of Alabama and LSU. I do still think Georgia's in it. I think Texas A&M's in it, and you just never know what's going to happen with Zach Evans. Things have kind of changed week by week with him. This week it's Alabama LSU. Next week it could be Georgia LSU. The next week it could be A&M Alabama. I just never know. Jahmyr Gibbs just recently got offered by Alabama, Georgia Tech commitment out of Dalton High School in Georgia. I think he's definitely in the mix for Alabama if they miss on Zach Evans and then Jace McClellan, the Oklahoma commitment, Rivals 100 guy. I think he sticks with Oklahoma, but he will be in Tuscaloosa for the LSU game, so kind of have to see what happens there. Wide receiver wise, as I mentioned earlier, I think that two is not out of the question, but it needs to be they're not just going to go try to get two guys. It's got to be the right two guys, and they're going after some big names right now. Two of them are going to be on campus this weekend, and Raheem Jarrett, Sean Boot is still recruiting Xavier Henderson, Arian Smith, Brian Robinson. So still some guys out there that they're hoping to get a tight end, as I mentioned, and not sure what's going to happen there. Don't like Alabama's chances with really any of the guys that are still out there. Offensive line, if Jason Jones agrees to sticking to the playing offensive line, switching over from the defense, Alabama could be finished at the position. Defensive line, McKinley Jackson still out there. Jordan Birch will come on campus for an official for the LSU game. So really, Alabama's really making a strong push for him. Philip Webb, I don't know yet. I mean, like I said, I think it's Alabama, LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn, all those schools very strongly in the mix. And then, finally at defensive back, Nadab Joseph, as long as he can get qualified, make the grades, he's at Independence Community College. I think Alabama's got a good chance with him. I think, it's, kind of an Alabama-Georgia battle with him, but, as of right now, like Alabama's chances, a little bit more with him. So. All right. Do I think Auburn can beat Alabama? Well, yeah. I mean, Auburn's been able to beat Alabama, big home games down there at Jordan-Hare Stadium. It's going to be a ridiculous atmosphere. I think a lot of people will see how healthy, Alabama is. Will they be down? Will they be, ready to play? Will they have lost to LSU? Will they walk in undefeated? Will a miracle, kick six happen? There's a lot of factors there. I mean, it's always a tough game playing down at Jordan-Hare Stadium. So yeah, I mean, Auburn's definitely a great team, but so is Alabama. And if I were to pick today, I would pick Alabama, winning that game with a healthy Tua. All right. Does Alabama have any interest in FSU grad transfer tight end Alexander Marshall? Hadn't heard his name yet, but like I said, I mean, I definitely think that Alabama's looking around to see who's out there in terms of graduate transfers at tight end, and that's probably going to be Alabama's best bet as far as a tight end is concerned. All right. Let's see. How do I feel about Eric Gilbert to LSU? Well, I don't really feel any certain way about it. I just, LSU got a tremendous tight end commitment. Let's see. Chances of Alabama winning LSU game without Tua. It's going to be tough. No doubt. It'll be very, very tough. I mean, LSU's coming in. What is it? Alabama's had 7 or 8 in a row against them so far. They're definitely pissed off. They haven't won a game in a long time against Alabama. They come in with a high flying offense, and we'll see. I mean, I think Tua needs to be in the game for Alabama to win. I just don't know. I mean, we'll see how Mac Jones is. I mean, he got thrown out there, wasn't expecting to start right away, or wasn't expecting to play, as quickly as he did last week, and kind of just got thrown in there. So maybe a few weeks under his belt, we'll see what happens. But I definitely think that I think Tua needs to be back. All right. Is LeBron Ray back for the LSU game? I think so, but you guys are going to have to ask Tony and Kyle about the team stuff. I hadn't really followed along with the injuries as much as those guys have, but you'll have to ask those guys about it. Let's see. Do I think Joe can move to safety next season? Yeah, I do. So, we'll see. I mean, Alabama's got I think they've got a very young, very talented core of defensive backs. They're bringing in some really good guys in this year's class. Really like Brian Branch a lot. I mean, I think he's an absolute stud in this recruiting class. So, so keep an eye out on him next year, maybe coming in and making an early impact. Do I think Eric Gilbert will flip to Alabama? It's an uphill battle. I mean, once you commit, especially after you take all these official visits, everybody says, "Oh, well, these kids flip flop all the time. Nothing's final until they sign." Well, a lot of that's because they commit early, because they commit when they're juniors, or they hadn't taken any of their official visits. Or maybe a coaching staff change happens. We'll see what happens though. Eric Gilbert has been pretty patient, has taken all of his visits. I think we're almost into November, and this is when he makes his decision. So it's going to be very tough, I think. But obviously, it's something that we'll watch pretty closely. Well, Alabama offered Brady Ward. I think a lot will just depend on what happens with the offensive line numbers and what happens with the overall numbers. I think there's a potentially a gray shirt possibility on the table for him. Not sure if they would sign him for the 2020 class, but potentially offer him in the spot for next year as a gray shirt. How good is Drake May? I think he's very good. I think his stock is skyrocketing. He's having an unbelievable junior season. I talked to him on Monday. Yeah, I was kind of blown away when he told me his stats. It's 31 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. He's got a couple really good wide receivers that he gets the ball to, but he has been extremely accurate. I think he's completing over 80% of his passes this year. I definitely expect him to be in the Rivals 100 when the next rankings are updated for the 2021 class. I definitely think he's underrated right now, but his stock is definitely on the rise, and definitely a great quarterback. It'd be interesting to see the battle between him and Bryce Young here in a couple years. Because both of them are definitely high profile kids. Bryce is going to come in as a true freshman and really compete for the starting overall spot. And then you got Drake May, coming in right behind him. And I asked Drake about that the other day. I said, how do you feel about that? Does it worry you at all? About another high profile quarterback in this class? He said, it sucks that only one quarterback can, only one player can play the quarterback position. It's not like you got 5 players like you have on the offensive line, or you're rotating defensive linemen or defensive backs or anything like that. You only can play one guy. But he said he's not scared of competition. He kind of thrives on it. He's ready to come in. He's seen what Alabama's done at the quarterback position in terms of, not really playing favorites. They're going to play the best guy. Jalen came in, started as a true freshman, and then Tua came in and ends up taking his place. So Alabama's kind of proven that they are they're not stuck on one guy. If somebody comes in, wins the position, that they're going to give it to them. All right. Don't sleep on Paul Tyson's. Yep. I know. So, to Paul Tyson, Leah, Alabama's going to have, a really good quarterback room next year. So, I definitely think that they've got they're going, not saying they're going to be improved, but I think they're going to have some very quality backups, some really good competition. The spring's going to be fun. We're not going to hear from Nick Saban until week 3 of next football season who the starting quarterback is. So that'll be fun. Is Reggie Grimes a take? Reggie Grimes, an Alabama legacy, has been to Tuscaloosa a few times, and several times, was in Tuscaloosa. I think what was that, September 20th? I can't remember exactly when it was, but He's already taken an official visit. I don't think he ends up in this class. And I think it's just trying to figure out, kind of what position he ends up playing. Is he a defensive lineman? Is he a linebacker? And probably a lot of people are assuming that maybe he's a replacement for Philip Webb if Philip Webb ends up going elsewhere. I just not sure that's going to be the case. I think Grimes ends up going somewhere else right now. All right, guys. Right at about 30 minutes. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you guys for joining. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Jump on the BamaInsider.com recruiting board if you have any other questions for me. Excuse me. We're going to have a ton of stuff this weekend for the big recruiting weekend in Tuscaloosa for the Arkansas game. And that's going to be it for today, guys. Have a great weekend. Thanks.